After my partner passed away, I thought the hardest days were behind me. But then, out of nowhere, his estranged parents appeared at my door, demanding the keys to the home we had built together. I could have refused, but instead, I agreed, on one condition. What happened next left them, and me, speechless. Subscribe to Stories Unfolded for more stories of resilience, karma, and the unexpected twists that life throws at us. You won't believe how this story ends. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't just hit you in waves. It lingers, wrapping around your life like an unwelcome guest you can't evict. That was exactly how I felt after losing Sam, my partner of 8 years. Sam wasn't just the love of my life. He was my anchor, my confidant, and my home. We met when I was 26, a chance encounter at a small coffee shop where I had spilled my drink all over his sketchbook. Instead of getting angry, Sam laughed, saying it was the most interesting thing to happen to his art in weeks. That was Sam for you, always finding beauty in chaos. He was an artist, his hands constantly smudged with charcoal or paint, and he saw the world in ways I never could. Over time, we built a life together. We bought a modest but charming house on a quiet street, filled it with mismatched furniture and laughter, and turned it into a home. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. But then, a sudden illness took Sam from me. One moment he was full of life, sketching the sunset from our back porch. The next, I was sitting in a hospital room, holding his hand as the monitors went silent. In the weeks that followed, I found solace in the memories we had created in our home. Every corner of the house reminded me of Sam, his favorite armchair by the window, the shelf he built for his art supplies, the faint paint stains on the dining table. It was all I had left of him, and I clung to it with everything I had. It had been 3 months since Sam's passing when the knock came. I wasn't expecting visitors, so I hesitated for a moment before opening the door. Standing on my porch were 2 strangers, though I recognized them immediately from the photos Sam had reluctantly shared with me over the years. Judith and Robert Miller, Sam's estranged parents, stood there in crisp clothing and stiff postures, their expressions a mix of awkwardness and something I couldn't quite place: entitlement. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice guarded. Judith, a woman in her late 60s with perfectly styled hair and an air of self-importance, was the first to speak. "We're Sam's parents," she said, as though I didn't already know. "We're here to discuss the house." I blinked, caught off guard. The house? Robert, who had remained silent until now, cleared his throat. "Yes. Since Sam was our son, we believe it's only right that the house belongs to us now." The audacity of their statement left me speechless. Sam rarely talked about his parents, and when he did, it was with a mixture of pain and frustration. They had never supported his decision to become an artist, believing it to be an unworthy career for their son. Their disapproval only grew when Sam came out to them as gay in his early 20s. "They said I was throwing my life away," Sam had told me once, his voice heavy with hurt. "I tried to make them understand, but they didn't want to see me for who I really am." Their relationship had been strained ever since, with Sam eventually cutting off contact. In the 8 years we were together, they never reached out, never visited, never even sent so much as a birthday card. And yet, here they were now, standing on my porch, demanding the house Sam and I had built together. Judith's voice snapped me back to the present. "Sam was our only son," she said, her tone teetering between grief and entitlement. "We have the right to his belongings. This house," she gestured around dramatically, "should come back to the family." "Back to the family?" I repeated incredulously. With all due respect, you haven't been a part of his life for years. Robert bristled at my words. We're still his parents, he said sharply, and that makes us his next of kin. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. Actually, it doesn't. Sam left everything to me in his will. Judith's eyes narrowed. That can't be right, she said quickly. Sam would never. He did, I interrupted, my voice firm. And I can show you the will if you'd like. They exchanged a glance, clearly taken aback. But instead of backing down, Judith pressed forward. Look, she said, softening her tone slightly. We just want something to remember him by. This house. It's part of our family's legacy. I bit back a bitter laugh. You had years to be part of his life. You chose not to. Now you want to show up and take the one thing that's left of him? I don't think so. Despite my anger, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for them. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was the knowledge that they had lost their son too, even if their relationship had been fractured. So, I made a decision. I'll tell you what, I said, crossing my arms. You want the keys to this house? Fine, but on one condition. Judith's eyes lit up with hope, and Robert leaned forward slightly, waiting for my next words. You spend one night here, I continued, in this house, and you look around, really look around, at the life Sam built, the art he created, the memories he left behind. And then, if you still think you have a right to take it, we'll talk. Their expressions shifted from hopeful to uneasy. Spend the night? Judith asked, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. That's the deal, I said firmly. Take it or leave it. Judith and Robert hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. They hadn't expected resistance, let alone a condition that forced them to confront the past. But their desire to claim the house won out over their discomfort. Fine, Judith said, though her voice lacked conviction. We'll spend the night. Good, I replied, handing them a spare set of keys. You'll find everything you need inside. I'll be back tomorrow morning to hear your decision. Without another word, I walked past them, leaving them standing in the doorway. As I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder what they would find, and whether it would change anything. Judith and Robert stepped into the house, closing the door behind them. The air was quiet, save for the faint ticking of a clock in the living room. The home was cozy, filled with warm colors and personal touches, evidence of a life well lived. The first thing Judith noticed was the art. Sam's paintings adorned nearly every wall, from abstract landscapes to portraits bursting with emotion. One particular piece caught her eye, a vibrant depiction of a sunset over the ocean. Do you think he painted all of these? Judith asked, her voice softer now. Robert shrugged, though his usual air of certainty had faded. I guess so, he murmured. As they moved further into the house, they found more signs of Sam's life. In the kitchen, a small notebook sat on the counter, filled with handwritten recipes. On the dining table was a sketchbook, its pages filled with half-finished drawings. This house is different than I imagined, Judith admitted, running her fingers along the edge of the table. It's so personal. Robert didn't respond. He had wandered into the living room, where a collection of photographs lined the mantel. One photo in particular caught his attention, a picture of Sam, me, and a dog sitting on the back porch, all of us laughing. For the first time that day, Robert felt a pang of guilt. As the evening wore on, Judith and Robert found themselves drawn deeper into the details of Sam's life. But it wasn't until they stumbled upon a small box in the bedroom that everything changed. Inside the box were letters, dozens of them, written by Sam over the years. Some were addressed to me, others to old friends. But one letter, sealed in an envelope with Mom and Dad, written on the front, stopped them in their tracks. Robert hesitated, but Judith reached for the letter, her hands trembling as she unfolded the paper. "Dear Mom and Dad," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here. I've written this letter so many times, unsure if you'd ever see it. I always hoped things between us would change, that one day we'd be able to sit together and talk about the things that matter. But I've come to accept that not all relationships heal the way we want them to, and that's okay. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when it felt like you stopped loving me. I wish you could have seen the life I built, the art I created, and the person I became. I was happy, even without your approval. This house, my home, is where I found peace. It's where I was my truest self. And while I wish you could have been part of that journey, I hope you'll find some comfort in knowing I was loved and cherished until the very end." By the time Judith finished reading, tears were streaming down her face. Robert looked away, his jaw clenched, but his eyes glistened with unshed tears. When I returned the next morning, Judith and Robert were waiting on the porch. Their expressions were subdued, their usual bravado gone. "Well?" I asked, my voice neutral. Judith stepped forward, holding out the keys. "We don't want the house," she said quietly. "It belongs to you. Sam would have wanted it that way." I nodded, accepting the keys without a word. "We're sorry," Robert added, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I looked them both in the eye and said, "I hope you'll use this as a chance to reflect. Sam deserved better from you, but maybe it's not too late to honor his memory by being better people." Judith and Robert nodded, their guilt evident. Without another word, they turned and walked away, leaving me to stand alone on the porch. Sam's parents came demanding a house, but they left with something far more valuable, a reminder of the son they had lost and the life they had missed out on. This story is a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the importance of cherishing the people in our lives while we still can. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories Unfolded. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And remember, true belonging isn't found in possessions. It's found in the love we share.